Hello, welcome to Know the Faith, Defend the Faith. My name is William Hemsworth, and thank you for joining me for this week's program. My guest at this time, he's a Catholic speaker, author, evangelist, author of God Moments, and Stop Googling Yourself. Orlando Javien Jr. How are you doing today, Orlando?
Doing great. Hey, William, just real quick, the Stop Googling Yourself was actually retitled.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we rebranded the books to God Moments and Unplugged, just to get it a fresh new look.
Unplugged. Perfect. Okay. I went on Amazon before this, and those are the two that popped up. My apologies.
Not worries.
I've read them both. Great books. Check it out. Unplugged spoke to me a lot, as, of course, the book we're going to talk about today, God Moments. So, with everything going on in the world today, I guess let's talk at the background of God Moments. How did God Moments come about?
Um, Originally, my book was titled God Made Me Pick Up Underwear, Finding Faith in Unusual Places. And then when my publisher went out of business, I had the book that I still believed in, but couldn't get a new publisher. Finally, I met with Inspire Books, Beth Lottig, and she bought into my books and decided to republish them. But she wanted to give them a different look, something to kind of make it look new. And the first thing I thought about was God Moments, because when I was thinking of my third book or my fourth book, I was thinking, I really like the idea of God Moments because he's everywhere. Just as he's led me to pick up underwear, pick up trash, put away shopping carts, or go to complete strangers, he's everywhere. We just have to be willing to open up our eyes to see him. And as I've started leading men's groups and religious education classes, one of the things I always like to ask the participants was, where did you see God? Because if you find God in just the simplest places, then you find him everywhere. And when you find him, then you really can have a relationship with him because you see him everywhere. So that's where the God Moments idea came about.
Okay, and in the book, you have several chapters about, well, pretty much everyday things about how you see God. And of course, this is something that you continue on with your podcast and LinkedIn videos and all that. Was there one central theme, one central, I know you talked about the genesis of the book, but was there one moment where you're like that aha moment? Like, okay, God is, if you just look for him, he's there everywhere. Is that one aha moment for you?
If anything, the aha was the picking up the trash. I was in prayer one morning and I said, Lord, talk to me. I hear you talk to your kids and I'm ready to listen. I think that was it. I was ready to listen because I know he always talks. It's most of the time I wasn't ready to receive what he had to say to me. And when I said I'm ready to listen and I'm walking in a parking lot, I see this trash on the ground and I hear God speak to me saying, pick it up. Now, it wasn't an audible voice. It was more of a tapping on the heart. And then when I looked up at God and I said, God, is that you talking to me? Again, he didn't speak verbally, more tapping on the heart. He said, if you pick it up, you're going to make the world cleaner. If you pick it up, you're being obedient to me. Either way, you picking up the trash, you're doing a good thing. And that kind of started the putting the shopping carts away. One time, again, I was at a shopping center and God said, put away the shopping carts. And I thought, you mean this one in front of me? And he said, no, all of them.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, well, somebody gets paid for that. But what I heard from God was, either be obedient or you're helping somebody do their job. And that eventually led to me picking up underwear, where I saw underwear on the ground and I shook my head to God and I said, no, different. That's underwear. And started walking away. And when I was walking away, I felt God grab my heart and speak very profoundly into it. He said, Orlando, I hear your prayers. You want me to use you for big things, and I will. But first, I have to see if you'll be faithful with the little things, even picking up underwear. And the moment I turned around and picked up that underwear, I noticed God taking me up a level, going up to complete strangers and praying for them, sharing, all the struggles I've had in my life, in the World Wide Web to my family. I think that was the pivotal step where I just saw him in the trash and the shopping carts and then the underwear, and then it just kept going up from there.
I think that's very profound what you just said. Starting small. God gives us those small things, not I mean, to test us, yes, but to see if we're obedient, and then just packs it on. What do you say to those who maybe don't want to do those small things?
Uh, I can honestly tell you that I wanted the big things right away. I saw myself standing in front of, thousands of people just sharing my heart and sharing my story because I really watched a lot of profound evangelists and I saw what they were doing like Billy Graham and I thought I want to do what he's doing. But I noticed God wasn't giving that to me right away. He was giving me one person or two people. The only thing I can say is, you have to start small with anything, whether it's losing weight, whether it's saving money. If you try to do everything all at once, you'll find yourself frustrated because you don't see results right away. And when you get frustrated, you give up. But if you start small and you know it's going to be incremental steps, then you're more likely to continue the journey.
So I know this isn't your first time on the program. This is you've been on a couple times before. Last time we talked, you had started doing some public speaking with church groups. I think you had an event up in San Jose. How did starting small prepare you for those things?
Um, how did that? The great thing about starting small and that event was I was expecting that to be a very big event. I was thinking the church was going to be full. That was my expectation. And when I got there, there was maybe 15 people at most in the audience. And they had paid for my way to come all the way out there, and so I was expecting it to be pretty big. But when there was only 15 people, I could have easily have got disappointed. But I've come to learn because of the little small steps God's taken me with, be faithful with the one I give you, and then I'll give you more. And I want to reach 1 million people, but I've realized if I effectively minister to one person, that one person becomes two people, that becomes three and four. It multiplies. Um, and because he started me off small, I was still able to share the message to the small group I did. And not only that, was I was able to talk to them in between talks. Typically, if there was a big event, you would only be able to talk to a few. But I was really able to sit down and talk to, almost everyone in that group. So
So you got more of a personal connection with them.
exactly, yeah, and I got emails, I got texts. So I didn't just leave that meeting with just, hey, I gave a talk, but I met friends that I still text, I still email and communicate on a regular basis.
Great. So what feedback have you received about your book from people that have read it?
Um, People enjoy that it's short.
Okay.
People these days don't have time to sit down and read. I mean, if you look at Twitter, it's a couple of words. People want things given to you because their attention span is short. And the good thing about the way I write the way I read. I'm very simple. And every time I try to complicate it, I just get a roadblock. So I try to make things as simple as possible. And that's really one key thing people like. Hey, I like how short it is. It's easy to read. I can read a chapter in 5 minutes. Another feedback was people are so happy that I share my struggles. Too many people hide their struggles, and when you hide your struggles, then you feel alone. But the moment they see someone willing to take off their mask and share their struggles, all of a sudden um, they have that confidence to know, hey, I can share my struggles too.
Now, one of the chapters in your book was about losing your job. And unfortunately, right now, we have millions and millions and millions of people out of work. How did you find God in that? I think people need to hear that.
Um, at that time, I definitely found God in being with my family. Prior to losing my job, I was a workaholic, working 60 plus hours a week. I left the child rearing to my wife, and I really didn't give any of my family my time except for a quick hello, goodbye, let's eat dinner, dad's going back to work. So having that time definitely allowed me to focus on what was most important, watching my kids grow up, fostering a relationship with my wife. That's definitely a God moment. It was also humbling to be making a large amount of money and then making less, because you realize when you're pressed, when you don't have finances, when you don't have money, you can live off less. You just have to be better budgeting. You have to watch where your money goes. And I think what really helped was being able to lean on my wife. I think too many times I was leaning on my ability to bring in an income. I had to lean on my wife, and it, I can sense that she saw my frustration many days, because now I was doing the dishes, I was doing the drop offs, she was taking the burden of working. And they say to a man without work, it's very what's the word? It's difficult because you take away what we know. You take away our ability to provide. So it gave my wife also the opportunity to pray for me more and speak words of hope. And those are really the key things. It's being with the family more, learning how to survive off of less, and having to lean on my wife. Not too many men will share their struggles with their wives. They just bury it away. But when you don't got much, you have to lean on whatever you have.
Well, amen. And you recently celebrated an anniversary, so happy anniversary.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So, what have you, during this whole COVID mess, what has something that God has shown you during all this?
He's definitely shown me how to be at peace. Um, I went through the struggle in '08 without finances. This time we were better prepared. Um, so that was a blessing to know, because I experienced it in '08 and we knew that there were going to be rocky times. We prepared better. And so there's a lot of people struggling, but we were able to look at each other, my wife and I, and say, we're good. Um, and at the same time, it's brought us closer to our family. Because the kids have nowhere to go, they have nothing to do. They have to sit with us and communicate with us, and we've had tons of laughs. I mean, to the point where we were crying, because when we sit with each other, things that come out of our mouths, it's hilarious. So those are definitely precious moments. That my kids are teenagers and they're going to be off to college not too long from now. Those are definitely moments that I'm going to treasure.
So, God moment in the mess.
Yes, God moment in the mess. Yeah, they say without the mess, there'd be no message.
That's absolutely true. My wife and I were talking about that a couple of weeks ago, how we've just been forced to slow down. I mean, we're eating dinner together as a family, we're talking more, spending more time together. So that has definitely been a blessing, just to learn more about each other. So a few months ago, your ministry, I mean, obviously it started with the writing, then your publisher went out of business. You got the books retitled, you got them rebranded, sent back out. Great books, by the way. Check them out, everyone. Then you started a podcast. So tell us about your podcast.
The podcast is called God Moments, kind of the following the the book, where I just take the time to just share God's word. I read a passage from the Bible, and then I share where I find God. Too many people struggle with the ability to find God because they're looking for this grand event. And I believe God's everywhere, even with the simple things. Whether I wake up and I'm on my own 2 feet, there's a God moment. Or, I humble myself and do the dishes. There's a God moment. But you have to actively look. When you look for him and you know that he doesn't have to be this extravagant moment, then you find him more often. And it's a great conversational piece too, because I ask him, hey, where did you see God? And then people will say, well, I don't know. I haven't seen him. I'm like, you're awake, aren't you? Yeah, hey, there's a God moment right there. You could be the opposite. And when you make things that simple, all of a sudden people go, hey, I did see God. But I don't know how it got complicated, but it got complicated. And so I'm just trying to make things simple.
I think in times like this, keeping it simple is a good thing because, like I said, God is absolutely everywhere. So, how's the podcast going?
The podcast is great. I've been trying. The word is trying to record one every single day because I've learned that consistency on any platform is key. If you were to create, one podcast, throw it out, and expecting to get to the Joe Rogan level, you're fooling yourself.
Right.
So just like with dieting, just like with finances, there's got to be consistency. So I've really learned how to make it more simple. I throw out the script. I throw out, having to have all the fancy gear. So, because I've tried to make it complicated, and then I would only do one, and then 2 weeks later I do another one. And so I've really learned how to scale things down to make things, probably 5-minute episodes. And I think the simplicity has really helped me be consistent with the podcast.
Great. Now, where can they find the podcast if they want to hear it?
You can find it on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts. The great thing is I'm using this app called Anchor, and you create it. I create it on my phone. I edit it on my phone, and then from there I post it from my phone, and within a minute it's everywhere. So I definitely enjoy that app because again I need things simple.
So, what can you say to those listening to the show today? I know we talked about keep it simple. Like I said before, we talked off air how just there's so much going on in the world. How can people find those God moments?
You definitely have to stop. You have to take a moment to just sit there and ask him. I think that's the key thing is you're not going to find God if you don't ask him to show up. There's that Bible verse, Revelations 3:20. I stand at the door and knock. If anyone opens the door, I will come in with them and dine with them and they with me. And I've seen illustrations of that verse where Jesus is standing there at the door and there's no doorknob for him to open. There's only a doorknob on your side. You got to let him in. He won't force his way in. He gives us free will. But the moment we open the door and say, God, I want you in my life, all of a sudden he will flood you. He will flood you with God moments. And then it's actively seeking him. Lord, show me. I think one of the key things I pray is, Lord, show me my heart. When I ask God to show me my heart, all of a sudden he reveals a lot of things that are like, oh, wow, I shouldn't have said that, or oh wow, I need to be better in that area. So it's being vulnerable to. Oh, there's a huge lawnmower right in front of me. So excuse that. I think they're coming into my backyard now.
Oh, it's all right.
Yeah, so, but that's it. It's opening up your heart for God to come in and speak to you, and then once you do, all of a sudden he'll speak to you. You just have to be open to his voice.
Now we talked about where they can find the podcast. Where can they learn more about your books and your speaking?
The books, you can find them on Amazon. You can find my podcast, I mentioned Spotify, iTunes. Speaking, I'm part of a speakers bureau, CatholicSpeakers.com. Again, I need things simple. I can't field calls and, hey, we want you to speak, because I do run a bookkeeping practice. So it's nice to have somebody to facilitate that for me. I'm also on YouTube. I'm on Instagram and I just recently joined Facebook. For many years, I was using my wife's Facebook. I'd say, "Hey, can I use your phone?" And I would throw something up, and I noticed some people would engage in it, but because it was my wife's, um, hold on one second. I think door's about to close.
Okay.
Yeah, they wouldn't engage in it totally because it was hers, not mine. And then just a couple of weeks ago, I asked my wife. I says, "Hey, can I start using Facebook?" Um, and the reason why I had to ask permission, because, you know, I definitely wasn't a husband of the year for many years, and I'd broken a lot of trust barriers, and so Facebook was off limit, and I understood that, and I honored that in my wife. But my heart wanted to minister to people, and I felt it was time to ask. And when I asked her for permission, she said yes. And I think that really does help, knowing that God um, made the process so long, because I've already been on the faith journey 13 years, and I wanted to be, sharing in so many different venues. But he was saying, in my time, not in your time. Trust me, and I'll open the door when the door is ready. And by trusting him and trusting in my wife's heart, that just brings us closer, because I'm not doing things just because I want to do it. It's with her permission, because this journey is not just about me. It's about me and her and the family. If I'm going to say something in one of my posts and it includes her, I say, "Hey, is this okay?" If she says yes, then I'll post it. If she says no, that's a little, you're oversharing, then I'll pull back. But there's definitely a lot of growth in our marriage through this process.
Well, great. Everyone, check out the books on Amazon. Check out the podcast wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. I listen to it on, personally, I listen to it on the Anchor app and also on Podcast Addict. So you're doing great work, Orlando. Thank you for coming on the program today. Any parting words you want to share with anyone?
Any parting words? If you want to have a God moment in your life, you have to open your eyes so you can see God, open your ears so you can hear God, and open up your heart that you can receive Him. And you do that, you'll find God moments more often.
All right. Well, amen. Orlando, thank you for coming on the program today. I really appreciate it. It's always great talking with you.
Thank you, William. I really enjoy it.
All right. God bless you.
God bless. Take care.
You too. Let's see.